Meg Smith's poetry and fiction have appeared in Dark Moon Digest, The Cafe Review, Muddy River Poetry Review, Starline, The Horror Zine, and many more. She is the author of 5 poetry books and a short fiction collection, The Plague Confessor. Over to you, Meg.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, this is like the best power lunch I could have asked for, it being noon here in Eastern Standard Time. So first of all, thank you, everybody, for welcoming me and all the writers. And I'm going to be reading from my short fiction collection, The Plague Confessor. And it's also part of a giveaway. So folks living in the continental US can receive a hard copy. And if you win internationally, I'll be glad to send you a PDF. And it seems so apropos to continue with something of an invertebrate theme. I'm going to read from the short story, Wasp World, which, of course, some horror stories involve beautiful haunted castles and mansions. This one involves a crumbling office park in a New England town and a young professional couple named Jean and Mark. One day, Jean suggested that she and Mark go to a butterfly park that had recently opened. It was an airy atrium filled with light. Plants were meticulously groomed and soothing New Age type music was piped in. The butterflies soared and fluttered in dazzling colors. They rested on leaves, fanning their wings. There was a man and woman with a small child. There was a man and woman with a small child. A butterfly alighted on the child's shoulder, and he screamed. The parents hushed him and looked around, almost as if they thought the butterflies would not approve. The butterfly remained fixed on the child's shoulder. "Don't touch it," the woman pleaded. "You'll hurt it." A tear streamed down the child's face, and the parents took turns calming and admonishing him. At last, the butterfly went off on its own volition, and the child was still crying. Mark and Jean looked at each other in a kind of shared telepathic sigh. "I was never afraid of insects," Jean said. Mark said, "That's not the first time I've seen that. Some people think all insects bite or sting. They instill it in their kids." Mark's office was located in a suburban park. It was not the modern kind, with a cafeteria and gym. There was such a park across the way, but it required walking or driving there and eating up precious break and lunchtime. Mark's office complex huddled near a highway with a buffer of trees and some wetland between them. It was part of a strip of offices and light industrial complexes strung along the highway, which stood as a barrier between them and an otherwise quiet and affluent New England town. A fox emerged from the trees and strolled into the parking lot. People from Mark's office, the nearby aviation school, and even the daycare came out to inspect it. The fox surveyed them all, then turned and retreated. She had great, grave copper eyes. Some of the gathering simply smiled or tried for a photo. Some said philosophically that there was lots of conservation land around. Townspeople had been eager to preserve all the land they could. So, someone said, expected to see wildlife. But a few people got to the local police, the state police, environmental police, and even a dog grooming business. They also called the building management. An email memo went around to all the tenants with the request that it be shared to all the employees and guests. In polite language, it said the fox could not be trapped or moved and to simply avoid contact with it. "How are we supposed to do that with these kids?" a woman picking up her child at a daycare asked. Before Mark could stop himself, he said, "Keep an eye on your kids." The woman looked at him in indignant disbelief, and her son laughed. Later that night, he told Jean when he stopped by her townhouse. It was her night to make dinner. "Mark, you need a better filter," she said as she opened the oven. She was making a pot roast. "She's just a concerned mom, that's all." The conversation changed quickly. Children were not something either of them talked about with any comfort. There had been a similar unease at the butterfly park. The truth was that Mark had many days and nights when he imagined a world without people. People, he decided, couldn't manage money, couldn't manage kids, and they couldn't manage nature. More accurately, they couldn't handle it. On Facebook, a friend posted a photo of an insect that he found on his car. The caption said simply, "What the actual F is this?" There were comments of shock, amusement, and disgust. Mark knew what it was. It was an enormous wasp with a magnificent curled tail. "It's an ichneumon wasp," he wrote. There were no more comments after that. It was as if no one knew what to say because someone actually knew what this creature was. At work, Mark stepped outside to make a phone call. He glanced around, but did not see the fox. He wanted a private space. He went into a tinted glass tunnel that connected the park's two wings. When Mark opened the door and took out his phone, he looked up and realized why the corridor was so quiet. He heard a scratching sound. There was a loose tile in the ceiling. Darting freely in and out were some paper wasps. As much as Mark liked and respected insects, he respected the stinging ones enough to keep his distance. However, as he moved to open the door, he stopped. The scratching noise mixed with purposeful hum of their slender wings. For the first time, perhaps, he appreciated the poetry of what they did, the grace. Through the displaced tile, he could see just a faint outline of the exquisite honeycomb of their nest. They paid him no attention. He posed no threat, after all. That was both satisfying and unnerving. He, the human many times their size, capable of calling an exterminator with a firebomb, posed no threat. They seemed to know it. He was sure they did. After work, Jean came over. His turn to cook dinner. Spaghetti. It was not lost on her. She had made a pot roast. He was boiling up spaghetti. She sat on the couch, peering over the divider that separated the small living room from the kitchenette. As he stirred, he wondered if she would get up and help. She would not. It was a quiet protest, and he knew it. He looked past it and told her about the wasp nest. "I'm not really a fan," Jean said. "I told you, remember, my mother and father set up bluebird boxes in the marsh." "Yeah, you said that. It was a good idea," he said, looking at the bubbling water. "Did you forget what happened? Wasps came and killed the baby birds," she said. "And those butterfly boxes, they build nests in there, too." "Well, they're very adaptable. Butterfly boxes, office parks. I don't know why these shitty species are adaptable and the nice ones aren't. Like starlings, all over the damn place, knocking out the bluebirds." "You chose a career in software," he reminded her. "It makes better money than science," she reminded him. "Like you, right?" "This is the longest boiling water ever," he thought to himself. "I think you should tell building management," she said. "I mean, there's a daycare, right? Not good having a wasp nest." He changed the subject and started talking about her father. They were due to visit her parents soon. She remarked on the delicious spaghetti. "Very good for spaghetti," was plain to hear in her voice. That night, he had a curious dream. He was walking around in the butterfly garden alone. No disheveled matrons with fearful children, and the music was off. There were no butterflies. He looked up, just as he had done in the corridor. Everywhere was a panoply of delicate paper nests. They were attached to the roof, to the branches of the decorative trees. The air thrummed with the sounds of industry, of beating wings. The slender-waisted bodies gleamed black in the light, as did slick, glassy wings. Now and then, two would race toward each other in midair in a dance of combat, almost ritual. Invariably, one would fall. Then two massive clouds sped, blended in a crash like the cymbals of an orchestra. It was a ballet of war, an epic war, like that told in the Iliad or the Mahabharata. Bodies fell gloriously, like Hector of Troy or Achilles, great, even in their defeat. Thank you for listening.